protectors of the Sunnah, Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah.
Alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam Allah, wa Rasulullah. Welcome to another session of our series entitled The Resurrection. And we're almost at the ending of this series. We're speaking about what happens as we're standing there before Allah. We talked about how every one of us will have our one-on-one time with Allah. You will go across that Sirat bridge, and then you will stand there in the presence of a bright light, and that bright light will be Allah's presence. And that's when the angels will come forward, and they will bring you your book of deeds, and you will have to read from your book of deeds with everyone else in the creation standing there watching. Everyone else in the creation standing there listening. And the only people whose sins will be shielded from the rest of the world are those whom Allah chooses to shield. That's why when you read those hadiths, for example, the one where the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, whoever covers the sin of a Muslim in this world, Allah will cover your sins in the hereafter. That stuff will matter then. All those hadiths that we did not put into practice in this world, they will all come back to us on that day. You'll be surprised. We will be surprised at how our memories will come back to us on that day. And we'll wish that we could come back to this world and do things the right way. But unfortunately, there is no coming back. And so we're going to pick up from where we left off at that point in the day, on the day of reckoning, whereas you're standing before Allah, having to read from your book of deeds. And let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen for tonight's lecture. Okay. So today we're going to go into a little bit more detail about how the people will be given their book of deeds. How the people will be given their book of deeds. At the end of the reckoning, each person will be given his book containing his complete record of deeds. Everything that you did in this life from the age of puberty to the present. So everything that you did, not your thoughts. This is a question a sister has sent me. Will Allah hold us accountable for our thoughts? No. Allah only holds us accountable for our actions, not our thoughts. So everything that you did from the age of puberty until death, will be in that book and you will have to read. But the ways in which the people will be given their book will vary. And we talked about this before. We talked about how the believer will receive his book of deeds in his right hand from the front of him. And when you get that book of deeds in your right hand from the front of you, then your reckoning will be easy and you will return to your family in paradise happy. Where's the evidence? Allah tells us this in the interpretation of the meaning. As for he who will be given his record in his right hand, he surely will receive an easy reckoning and will return to his family in happiness. And when the believer looks at his book of deeds after receiving it in his right hand, he will be so happy that he will raise his voice and he will announce his happiness. As the law says in the interpretation, the meaning, as for he who will be given his record in his right hand, he will say, here, read my record. Surely I did believe that I would meet my account. So he shall be in a life well pleased. He will be in a lofty paradise. The fruits and branches will be low and close at his hand. He'll be told to eat and drink for that which you have been sent down. Okay, so here you can see Allah details how happy the believer will be when he or she receives their book of deeds in their right hand. But as for the unbeliever and the hypocrite, the story will not be the same. They will be given their book of deeds in their left hands and from behind their backs. At that point, the kafir will raise his voice and cry out in agony, praying against himself. Listen to what Allah says the prayer of the kafir will be in the interpretation, the meaning. But whoever is given his record behind his back, he will call upon his own destruction, and he will enter into a blazing fire, and he will be made to taste its burning. As for he who will be given his record in his left hand, he will say, I wish that I had not been given my record at all. And I wish that I had never known how my record would be. I wish that it had been that I was never born. My wealth will not help me. My power has left me. And then it will be said to him, to the angels, take him and tie him up and then throw him in the hellfire. So that's what's going to happen to the kafir. I tell you guys, this world is the paradise for the kafir, not for us. We had it hard in this world. The believer, we went through some hard times, but our happiness will come on that day when we receive that book of deeds in our right hand. As for the unbeliever, this world is his paradise. On the day of judgment, he would wish that he was never born, and he will be dragged by his face and thrown into the hellfire. As Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning, when the people are given their books, it will be said to them, this is our record, which speaks about you with truth. Verily, we were writing down what you used to do. So everything we do, guys, we need to be more careful of, especially now that Ramadan's over. Each and every one of us should be more in tune with our personal self. And we should strive hard, guys, to do the deeds that are pleasing to Allah and not the ones that are not. So we don't end up with a fate like this. And now what I want to do, guys, is Qurtubi, who was one of the early scholars of the Quran, he gave a beautiful depiction of this horrific scene that will occur on the day of judgment. And I want to go over his depiction because it is so terrifying and it is so true because it's based on the hadith. Qurtubi said, when the people are resurrected from their graves and driven to the place of judgment, they will stand there for as long as Allah wills them to stand, barefoot and naked. Then the time of reckoning will come, and Allah will bring them to account. He will command that the books in which the angels recorded the deeds of mankind be brought forward. And among them will be some who will be given their books in their right hands. Those who receive the book in their right hands, these are the blessed people who will enter paradise. These are the people who live their lives doing the deeds that are pleasing to Allah, and they earned his love. Others will be given their book of deeds in their left hands or from behind their backs. These are the hypocrites. These are the kafirs. These are also the sinful Muslims. Okay? These are the people who will be doomed to enter into the hellfire. And when given their book of deeds, the person will have to read it. They will read it out loud. The one given his book of deeds in his right hand, he will know that he's one of the people of paradise, and he will yell out, "This is my book." And if he was a leader of goodness who called others to good and who enjoined the good and did good deeds regularly, he will be called out by his name and the name of his father, and he will come forward, and a white book will be brought out for him, in the middle of which are his good deeds and his bad deeds. He will begin reading his book of bad deeds, and he will become frightened. His face will turn yellow, and his hair will, and the color of his skin will change. And when he reaches the end of this book of his bad deeds, it will be said to him, "These are your bad deeds, and you are forgiven from them." And he will become filled with happiness. And then he will turn the book over and read his good deeds, and his happiness will only increase. At the end of the book, he will find the words, "These are your good deeds, which are multiplied for you." And his face will turn white, and a crown will be brought and placed on his head. And then he will be dressed in 2 garments, and every joint of his body will be covered. He will grow to the height of 60 cubits, which was the height of Adam. And it will be said to him, "Go to your friends and family and tell them the good news. Tell them that each one among them will have the same." And when he walks away, he will say, "Here, read my book. Surely I did believe in Allah, and I got my just due." So here you guys can see Qurtubi put it from beginning to end. You know, and as you can see in his explanation, we'll be standing there barefoot and naked up until you read your book of deeds. When you read your book of deeds, that's when you'll be clothed. Does everybody see that? So everybody will see you and the reality of yourself, barefoot, uncircumcised, and naked. This is how all the people will be. And it won't be until you receive that book that you will be clothed. But on the other hand, if the person was a leader of evil who called other people to evil and enjoined evil upon them and did evil regularly, his fate will be different. He will be called forward by the name of his father too. And he will come forward. But instead of receiving a white book, he will receive a black book. And in the middle of that book will be his good deeds. And on the outside of the book will be his bad deeds. The reckoning will begin with his good deeds, which he will read. And after reading his good deeds, he will think that he is saved from the hellfire. And then when he reaches the end of his book, it will say, "These were your good deeds, but they have been rejected." And when he reads those words, his face will turn black. He will become overwhelmed with grief. Then he will turn the book over and read his bad deeds, and his grief will only increase, and his face will grow blacker. Then when he reaches the end of that, he will find the words, "These are your bad deeds, which are multiplied for you." The punishment will be multiplied for him. It does not mean that things that he did not do will be added to his record. It just means that the bad deeds he did do will be multiplied. And then he will be taken to the hellfire, and his eyes will turn blue, and his face will turn black, and he will be dressed in garments of pitch. And it will be said to him, go to your friends and tell them that each of them will have the same. So he will go off wishing that he had not been given his record, wishing that he had not even been born. So I remember the other day, a sister asked me, is it true? She asked me about the angels of the grave, if they had blue eyes. No, the angels of the grave are black and blue in color. It doesn't mention anything about their eyes. I think that the person that she heard that from confused that with this. That's where I think happened, because I did hear the person that she heard that from make the statement that the angels of the grave have blue eyes. They don't. I think what he did was confuse that hadith with this one. When the person, the unbeliever and the hypocrite reads from their book of deeds and discovers that they're going to hell, Allah will cause their skin to become dark in color and their eyes will turn blue. Okay? So that's what I think the person confused that with, that hadith with this one. Okay? So the man will then go off and call out to his friends and family. He will say to them, because he will be dark in color and his eyes will be blue. He will say to his friends, do you recognize me? And they will say, no. The only thing that we see is the grief on your face. That's what's meant by he will turn dark, not meaning black in color. It means the face will become darkened with grief. And the only thing that he will have is blue eyes. So they will say to him, no, we don't, all we see is the grief on your face. They will say, who are you? They won't even recognize him. That's how scared he will be. The man will be so scared. The woman will be so scared that her family and friends won't recognize her. And then you will say, I am so-and-so. And each of you will have the same thing happen to you that happened to me. Remember, birds of a feather flock together. Okay, so the simple fact that these were the people that he or she hung around with, who encouraged him to do the bad he did, you know, he's going to be dark in color and with blue eyes, and they won't even know who he is. And he'll say, well, guess what? This is getting ready to happen to you too. Okay. As for those people who will be given their books from behind their back, their left shoulders will become dislocated and their arms will be placed behind them, with which they will take their books. And these are the sinful Muslims, guys. As you guys know, these are the sinful Muslims. The ones that receive their deeds behind their back are the sinful Muslims. Your shoulders will become dislocated. Listen to what Mujahid said. He said their faces will be moved to the back of their head and they will read their books in that state. Imagine reading with your head turned backwards. Imagine reading your book of deeds with your head turned backwards. If you are one of the blessed people going out before the creation with a happy face, having a beautiful appearance with your book in your right hand, you will be seized under the arms by an angel who will call out to the people and say, this is so-and-so, the son of so-and-so. He has found happiness and he will never feel sorrow again. But if you are one of these doomed people, your face will turn black and you will pass the people with your book in your left hand or behind your back. And you will scream out in agony and an angel will grab you from under your arms and announce to the people, this is so-and-so who is doomed to a state of misery and will never feel happy again. So isn't this a scary thing to imagine? All of this happening in that one day, on a Friday, no Juma Mubaraks on a Friday. It's going to be the longest Friday in history. Are you going to be the person to receive your book of deeds in your front or behind your back or in your left hand? That's the question. And only you can determine that based on the choices that you have chosen to make in this world now. Okay, and so I like this depiction from Kurtubi because he lets us imagine, he put it all together in that sequence, the rising up out the grave, being ushered to the place of judging, and then having to cross that Sirat bridge. Once you get across the bridge, before you meet your fate, you're standing there naked before Allah. And then Allah will have this book sent out to you, either in your right hand, your left hand, or behind your back, and then he will clothe you. If you're a believer, he'll clothe you in good clothing. If you're an unbeliever or a hypocrite or a sinful Muslim, you'll be clothed in pitch black, tar. And if you are covered in tar, you're going to be dragged off and thrown into the hellfire to do some time because of those deeds you did, or to be in there forever if your aqidah was not correct. That's why it's so important for us to make sure that our belief system is correct. We need to make sure that we are upon the correct aqidah, guys, because if your aqidah is not correct, you're doomed. All right, I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there any questions or comments?